Hi, Amtrak offers a 10-ride pass for $500, which was enough to get me from Denver to San Francisco to LA to Austin, through San Antonio to New Orleans, to Memphis, Chicago, and then back home. The trip took 2 weeks. I saw friends and family, and I saw the landscape change out the window. We just had a very heavy snowstorm in Denver. This snow quickly gave way to beautiful blue skies, warm weather as soon as we crossed the Continental Divide in the Rocky Mountains. The tracks, they follow the Colorado River. When we crossed into Utah, this group of rafters turned their backs to us and pulled down their pants and mooned us on the train. The conductor pointed this out and assured us that it was okay because it was just a tradition. And then dozens of other groups of rafters did the exact same thing to us. My seatmate for the first leg was an Irishman who was visiting the United States. And he sat next to me and told me about the broken rib that he had had from a car crash a few days ago. Then we went through the Canyonlands and Cedar Mountain as the sun set and rose over the Nevada desert. But before I could even appreciate it, the train started going into the snowy slopes of the Tahoe National Forest in eastern California, which was already thawing into spring. And we got to see these beautiful marshes. And finally the sea. And soon I was exiting the train into the outskirts of San Francisco Bay. I went straight to the Green Tortoise Hotel. I took the local micro-mobility stuff and some trains, dropped off my bags, and started walking and found a pickup soccer game to play in until the sun set. And then walked around for a little bit after sunset as well. The next day was just spent traveling around between different points of interest. Some highlights were the Great Meadow Park at Fort Mason, where you could see all of the Golden Gate Bridge and parts of surrounding city. And then I really liked the Presidio. And then after that, I went down and meandered my way through part of Golden Gate Park before meeting my cousin Aggie for the first time in several years. And she told me, I thought I had seen a lot of the Golden Gate Park. Maybe I'd only seen about 10% of it. She told me that apparently there's a bison herd inside of the park. When I lived in New York, I liked Central Park, and it's probably the best part of Manhattan that's not huge buildings, but Golden Gate Park is just so much more well taken care of, and it's gorgeous. I love it a lot. So after going through the park, I met up with Aggie and we had some Korean barbecue and hot pot, which I had never had before. It's so delicious. Aggie had just recently made a film and submitted it to a film festival. It was about graffitis and music, and it's called Artists Live Here. It reminded me of Exit Through the Gift Shop, the one about Banksy, because you're seeing like this side of art and graffiti that is usually in the shadows. When I went back to the Green Tortoise that night, I helped a Chinese traveler book a train ticket to LA. I just had him take the same route that I was gonna take since I knew it would be absolutely amazing weaving along the coast. It's called the Coast Starlight, and it just has the best path, especially in the spring when everything's green. It was amazing. And then there was a British hitchhiker, half asleep on the couch, and she was telling me about her plans to make her way along into the Oregon wilderness after riding up north with some people that she had just met yesterday. I hope that she's okay. And then the next morning I got on the train, which was a little bit late coming into Emeryville, but that was fine because I was a little bit late to the station too. I didn't realize how long it would take me. I guess I could have gotten an Uber, but I didn't. I like taking the train. There was a bunch of rumors swirling around about why it was late and then why the middle passenger car was empty. Margaret, the school teacher, thought someone had died, and then Beth Stormont, who I later learned is a celestial poet, she was more concerned with the interstellar souls she had visited that were trapped underneath Mount Shasta.
It says Vermont.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know where those people are. Ever read Stephen King? Oh, I was gonna, but in Scandinavia.
I learned from one of the conductors that apparently a man had tried to cut his own throat in the bathroom of the middle car, which why it was empty. We didn't learn whether he had survived or not, but pretty sad. I actually missed my stop going into LA, and I had to walk for miles to find a scooter because the stop that I chose to get off at was right next to the airport, and there's no micromobility scooters allowed around the airport, apparently. But eventually I found my way to Nick's house after midnight with some tacos in my belly. I woke up the next morning and worked through his house a little bit. I got to leaf through his upcoming photo album, which is now released. He documented his bike trip from LA to New Orleans. I was honestly pretty inspired by the journey that he had made there. I grabbed some Guatemalan huevos rancheros and plantains, fried plantains, before catching the train out of LA. Across from me, a girl named Veronica and her chill cat Mini. Her dad Tom graciously gave me a ride down into Laguna Beach, where I met my uncle Eric and his girlfriend Ingrid. woke up in Arizona, and I had breakfast with Ronald and Carolyn, who grew up in Denver in the 30s and 50s. In Arizona, we went through one of the most desolate deserts that I saw along the trip.
Hey, cows.
I mean, we got to see the border wall and the gap at the end of the border wall where there is no wall. People could just walk through if no one was watching. In western Texas, a tethered aerostat radar system sparked the imaginations of me and my fellow passengers. Looks like a blimp. Yeah. Night fell as we were passing through Marfa, Texas. I learned that it's a UFO town, but I didn't see the mysterious Marfa orbs. A dense cacophony of bird songs greeted my arrival in Austin, Texas. Austin's really special because you go through all of this desert and then suddenly you're in the hill country. And it's so green and gorgeous. And when you come into Austin by the train, you don't cross any streets. You come in on a bridge and then you're just dropped right into the middle of the city. I spent many hours in Austin working at Manana Coffee. Later that day, I met my newly married friends, Neil and Haley, for dinner at the Odd Duck. And then back at the Firehouse Hostel, two would-be Neil Young concert goers, thwarted by the rain, were planning their journeys home. Two German girls, traveling separately, had been put in the same room together, and a traveler from Maui convincingly espoused his conspiracy theories of the Lahaina fires. A young man visiting from Saigon, Vietnam, told stories about his life in Southeast Asia as well. I love the kind of people that you meet at hostels. It's always so interesting. And I enjoyed a nice long walk along the river to Zilker Park. I played a little bit of pickup soccer at the University of Texas with some students. It was a little bit out of my way, but I was willing to pay in Austin too, but every game was full. I couldn't find anything. I guess I needed to plan ahead. And then right before I left, Terry Black's barbecue was a real treat. And then I had a little bit longer, so I walked and I visited a Carl Heindel exhibition where I saw a pencil drawing of a photogram and a few other works of art, and then visited a few other galleries before hopping back on the train. Intense flooding in Houston caused some delays to our train though. Luckily the tracks were raised on mounds of dirt, so even though we had to turn back a few times because of rerouted shipping trains blocking our path, we made it through. I spent some time talking to a Canadian traveler and a Louisiana local, James, who pointed out his childhood home and family business in New Iberia as he was getting off the train.
Yeah. Look at this. Naturally wooden train. It's a big barge. Yeah. You can tell just by looking at this. It looks pretty high. That's pretty average. No, there's a lot of rain in this area. Makes for a lot of good fishing though. She's just great for business. It's not really that high, but it's high. When you get on it, it's freaking crazy. Yeah. I just want to see it from out here. But other ones do move around. You tell me you went to Pittsburgh, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big town. That, you know, there are boats, there are barges there, Pittsburgh. Really? That I was told the guy, he said, I said, how far is it? He says, this goes down the Ohio, it's up to the Mississippi, goes all the way to New Orleans. How long does it take? 10 days. 10 days. Barge. So that's a barge and a half.
And then we arrived in New Orleans well after dark. This was the one part of my trip that didn't really go as planned, because this flooding in Houston meant I was late to New Orleans, and I had originally planned to have a little over 24 hours in New Orleans. I'd really wanted to visit some jazz clubs or something that night, but didn't get the chance. I got in, I think after midnight, just fell asleep immediately. And then my train was going out early afternoon the next day, so I really only had one morning and a little bit of the afternoon to experience New Orleans, which as a Ears town is a real travesty. I had 2 meals, and I really wanted more than that. So I'll have to go back. I had beignets in the morning, scallops and grits at Bearcat for a delicious breakfast. And then I walked up Bourbon Street, visited a graveyard, which are super interesting in Louisiana because the water levels mean they bury people above ground. And then I visited one of the local parks. Right before I left, I stuffed myself with jambalaya at Zesty Creole. I love jambalaya, and there's nothing like the real deal. When the train pulls into Memphis Station, it brings you straight into a blues club. So you don't have a choice, you're just immediately immersed in blues, which is perfect because Memphis is the home of the blues. I woke up the next morning and I'd already made an appointment at B.B. King's Blues Club, so I enjoyed a couple hours of local blues music, and then I had a lot of time and I didn't really know what to do, so I'd seen these signs. I went and visited the National Civil Rights Museum, which was really interesting, but I didn't know until the end that it was built in the hotel where Martin Luther King spent his final hours. So right at the end, it's like getting slapped in the face with the magnitude of that moment. Before I left, I grabbed some local fried chicken, and I couldn't resist grabbing a slice of pecan pie before getting on the train. We kept going north, and I finally ended up in Chicago. I only had about 5 hours there, but it was just enough time to visit my cousin Ian, who's currently at the School of Violin Making, learning to be a luthier. And so he gave me a little tour of the school, and we grabbed a quick meal and was able to board the train and head back to Denver. The farm country on the way back to Denver is pretty, but after 2 weeks away, it's always good to come home.